Joining us now, the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. And Kirk, you're now a movie star. You're already an NFL star, now a movie star. What was it like jumping into that world?
Well, it was a time commitment, certainly, to have the cameras follow us for the entirety of the season and be mic'd up for every game. But I believe it was time well spent. I think the final product turned out really well, which is what we were hoping for. And, hopefully fans will really enjoy getting a peek behind the curtain a little bit and see what it's like to be a pro quarterback.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, is the reasoning why you did something like this. Because up until this point of your NFL career, you've kept your private life private. What do you want fans to take away from this?
Well, I think the point of being private is just because so many times when you do allow access, people tend to abuse it, and they misrepresent you, and they just don't capture the essence of what it ought to have been. And with the way this was structured, from Peyton Manning as the producer to having the ability to see the content before it goes out and give feedback, all of that, I think, made it a much better way to allow the access. And so it was done the right way, and I knew I could trust them. And in that case, there's no reason to need to be all that private. And I think it was a real positive to let people see what your life and your family and the football season is like.
What did you want fans, though, to see, or what do you hope they take away from watching the commitment that you put into this sport?
Well, if they're fans of the Vikings and they follow us as closely as they do, I just hope they enjoy the access to the content. I would think that it's fun to see, how a quarterback prepares for the game behind the scenes, how he has to take care of his body, how he has to be a dad and a husband, and how he builds in his break time to catch his breath. So there were all those variables that I think would be fun and interesting for a fan. I know if I was someone, growing up following quarterbacks and wanting to learn from them, I would think something like this I would eat up, and hopefully it can be a great piece of content for a lot of football fans.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt. If you were a Kirk Cousins fan before this, it's just going to endorse your commitment to you. And if you're on the fence, people are going to flock to your side because it is marvelous. You have a memorabilia room at your house, and it's kind of tucked away. How often do you spend time in there?
I don't go down there too much, except to organize it, if you will, at the end of the season when I have accumulated a few more items to bring them down there and put them away and get it straightened up. But for me, I was accumulating so many memories going back to high school and college, and I was just putting them in plastic bins and putting them in storage on shelves. And I thought, it's a shame that these are just going to sit in bins unless I have an actual intentional place to put them. So
Right.
that was why we planned that room. And it's a work in progress, but to have it and to know that all that stuff is not just sitting in a bin on a shelf, but that it's actually out and you can go back through and kind of see the history of not just your football career, but really of your life. A lot of those mementos mean a great deal to me. And it reminds me of the movie Richie Rich, which came out when I was growing up. And they have a vault that someone tries to crack into. And when they finally do get into the vault, they realize it's just a bunch of junk. And the family says, no, this isn't junk. This is our memories. This is the stuff that's priceless to us. And that's really what that room is all about, is even if it's worth nothing to someone else, many of those things are priceless to me. And that's why they're in there.
Yeah, now, I think I got the story right from watching it. Your builder put a shelf in there for the Lombardi trophy. Is that something that you look at and say, God, that's really annoying that shelf is sitting there? Or is it inspiring to see that shelf sitting there waiting for that trophy?
Every year, it doesn't get filled with the Lombardi. It's getting more and more annoying, but it's good motivation too. So I'll take all the motivation I can get, and nothing would make me happier than to see that notch in the room have a Lombardi trophy for the rest of my life, and that's what we're chasing. Starting here in a couple of weeks. That's when we get back at it, and that'll be the goal, as it always is.
All right, right now you, I hope, feel physically fine, but after watching this episode where you just get pounded and pounded play after play, but you get up and you go right to the huddle Is it a mental thing that you don't want to show the opponent that, that one stung, that one hurt, and kind of like try to play a mental game right back at them?
I think it's very important that you don't show a chink in your armor during the game that could give your opponent an advantage. So, to the degree that you can sort of hide it, if you will, I think that's important strategically. But I also think there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. If you're injured, there's no such thing as toughing it out or pushing through it. That can lead to all kinds of bigger issues. So, when you're injured, you say you're injured, they come out and evaluate you, and you're off the field. But when you're hurt and you can play through it, I think those are the moments where it's important to grit your teeth and get up and get back to the huddle. And in some of those moments, it was more of a I'm hurt more than I'm injured, and I can get back in the huddle and get back to work. And if it ever was to a point where I didn't feel I could be the best quarterback that I need to be for us to win, then I would say, Nick Mullins, it's time for you to go in, and I got to get out. But as long as I feel I can still do the job, you got to play through that pain.
And how much do you think that inspires your teammates, right? If I was your teammate and I see you get blasted like that, whether it was my fault or someone else's, but you're asking them to give that same kind of commitment on a play, whether you're a running back or a wide receiver, they got to go up, risk themselves injury, they take the shot, they come back. How much do you think that could really feed a whole team?
I think when I'm speaking of my own teammates, when they're fighting through something, I think it sends a message that this matters to me. And I'm willing to make sacrifices for us to win and for us to have success. And I think we're all going to feed off of that attitude anytime someone displays it. So you want to always show people to the best you can that this matters to you and that it should matter to others as well. And if playing hurt can do that, then I'll take it.
Well, it was painful just to watch those segments. You also allowed the cameras to come with you when you met with the team psychologist, Dr. Mack, and you had final say over what was in and what was out. Why did you feel those segments were important to include those so we could see that?
I wanted people to see every aspect of my life. I wanted them to see, how I prepare for every game in every single way. And we still couldn't get everything in. We captured the content, but didn't have the time and the ability in 8 episodes to put everything in there. So, Dr. Mack was one of those pieces that did make it. And it was because I wanted every possible aspect of my preparation, in the show. And that was a big part of my preparation each week. And it will be this coming season as well. Once a week, meet with Dr. Mack to process whatever's going on, no matter how high the highs are or how low the lows are. I'm going to meet with him and have those conversations. And he's very sharp and has been around the block, so he knows how to handle whatever I throw his way.
All right, the Colts game, at halftime, you guys basically were talking, and again, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but basically, let's just try to get something out of this and not totally embarrass ourselves after that first half. When it started rolling, when the things started coming your way and the momentum came back to your side and you eventually won, of course, became part of NFL history. You watched that segment back. Do you see anything different in there after going through the film and stuff where you go, oh, yeah, that does make sense to me, or this maybe is why that happened?
I'm still trying to figure out how we came back in one half and scored all those points after not scoring the whole first half. It'll always probably puzzle me the rest of my life. But football's played one play at a time. Life is lived one day at a time. It's tempting to, think beyond that, but you really have to stay in the present. Even when you're down 33-0, you got to stay right where you are and focus on winning the next play. And it was a great lesson to me when that game ended of looking back to say, look how far you can go when you just focus on the next play. And in some ways, being down 33-0 freed us up because I think it allowed us to forget the scoreboard and forget the clock and sort of rule that out as the game likely is over, so let's just go play one play at a time and try to win each play for what it is. And then you look back and you see what you're able to do with that mindset. It's a great example of maybe to learn from moving forward of how to play football, coming up in 2023. Handle the season just one play at a time, regardless of the score or the time left in the game.
Yeah, it was truly remarkable, and I love it when you're talking to Tom Pelissero, and he goes, you just set the all-time record. You go, wait, what? we, we
I
we
had
did
no
what?
awareness of it, and I think that lack of awareness probably is what helped us get it done. I think it goes back to just being Zoom focused and be right where you are, where your feet are planted, and um, it's hard to do because there is so much noise, and part of what we do is there's a lot going on around it of trying to create a narrative and a story, and that's all well and good, but probably not the most helpful way for us as players to be thinking, and so it's better to just be locked in, and ignorance is bliss.
There's also another segment in there where they show you, I think, this is layman's term, but training your brain, where you wore that machine on your scalp and you're watching videos and it's showing you what you do and your focus. And then you're also reciting plays on the way home from the facility. I think what that shows people is just what kind of commitment you have to this sport to try to get yourself over the top and be ready each and every week.
Yeah, the play recitation came from Nick Mullins. I had never done that before, but I was having a hard time in a new system speaking out these long form play calls day after day, especially when they were always new. And Nick gave me the idea to record them and then kind of be able to, on the drive home or once I get home, be able to keep practicing it. And I thought it was a great idea. And so it's been a big help for me to do that. I'll keep doing it as long as the play calls are still really, really long. And there's no doubt I'm looking for 1-2% improvement anywhere I can get it. And many times you have to think outside the box to find it. And in the case of the neurofeedback, the brain training I do, and something as simple as recording plays on my phone and hearing them back, those are all creative ways to find that 1 or 2%.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. The brain training, was that something that you wanted to do, or did somebody introduce you to that, or because it looks interesting?
Yeah, I've been doing it over a decade now. First started my senior year of college, and it was very foreign to me at the time. But I've had a sample size now to look back on 10 years and see how much of a difference it's made. And when I've been diligent with the training, how I tend to play a little better. And when I get a little lazy with the training, my play tends to go with that as well. So it's something I just feel I need to prioritize and find the time for. And it's great to have a tool like that in my tool belt to keep getting better.
All right, I know you guys gave them total access, but after the loss to the Giants game, you allowed that camera crew to climb in your car and ride home to your house. Was there a point where you were going to say, maybe, you know what, guys, I'll talk to you in the morning?
Well, I felt this was what the show was all about. This was what we signed up for. So at that point, there was no surprise to me. I understood the expectation. And again, it goes back to this will allow people to see what it's like. And that isn't just in the highs, it's also in the lows. And I think to be able to see a car ride home after what was one of the most disappointing losses of my career, ultimately, I think that is valuable to be able to capture and show people. So the NFL film crew, I can't say enough positive things about them. The way they, handled everything, the class they operated with, the way they listened to what I needed. They were just phenomenal from start to finish. And when you have a film crew like that, you're willing to sign up for, a lot of things.
Well, and it really put it in perspective when you turn in the driveway. Julie goes to you, it's garbage night. So that, yeah, had to go out and take the garbage out after a game like that.
Yeah, that was another great, summation of what it's like. Life doesn't stop because the Vikings win or the Vikings lose, and your family of all people knows that you're a lot more than just a quarterback. So you're also take the garbage to the street guy on Sunday night. And thankfully our driveway isn't too long, so it's not too tall a task. But I thought that was kind of a funny way to capture what it means to be far more than just the Vikings quarterback.
They also show in episode 8 you winning the Bart Starr Award, which is given to players who go beyond what it is to be just an NFL quarterback, both on and off the field. And they showed a clip from your acceptance speech where it really hit you. We haven't seen that side of you. Why did that moment mean so much to you, Kirk?
Well, I think what the award represents, who it's named for, it was a tremendous honor. And when I was able to accept the award and then just in some quick thoughts share looking back on Bart Starr's life, the impact he had and what truly was his motivation being his faith, and how ultimately that's all that will matter. It just hit me in that moment as you kind of take stock of things and what really matters. And I didn't want to get emotional in the moment, but it just happened. And I think, again, it shows people, I guess, my heart and what really matters to me.
Well, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this, that if anyone ever doubts the commitment you have given to the sport, to the Vikings, to your teammates, to your family and friends, there's no question that you're all in every morning when you wake up.
I appreciate that. I wish I could just show up and be that good, but I've learned that for me to be able to last in this league and have success, I have to give every inch, and I can't leave anything out there. And so I wish I was someone who was naturally good enough to just show up, but that's never been my story and never will be. So I'm always looking for those inches. And again, I think that was something that came through in the documentary.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you push through it, right? That's how you overcome maybe some physical, shortcoming, that you're looking for every edge, thinking through everything. You're upset at yourself when a play doesn't go the way you think you should have been able to perform. And I think that's what's made you a success to this point.
I think so, Jim. I think that's a good way to summarize it. And there's more to go get up ahead. We've got bigger goals up ahead. We won the division last year. We need to do it again. And it'll all start here in a couple of weeks when training camp begins.
All right. Kirk Cousins, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for sharing this with Viking fans. They're really going to enjoy it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.